Welcome to RBTV Pregame for tonight's matchup between the Elgin Maroons and your RB Bulldogs. I'm Dakota McGoniagle.
And I'm Henry Jurgens.
We're down here at Bulldog Stadium, some varsity soccer wrapping up behind us and a great show ahead of us, so let's get right into it with our IHSA update. We're going to start off by looking at the top 10 teams in the state of Illinois right now. Number one, no surprise, East St. Louis.
East St. Louis has been a great team as they've been to 5 straight 6A state title games in the last 5 years. They're coached by legendary coach Darren Sunkit, who has 4 state titles over 25 years. They are 0-2, but against nationally ranked opponents like Bishop Gorman. So I will see East St. Louis repeating that state title this year, but we'll look into number 2 as Chicago Mount Carmel is at the 2 spot.
Yeah, again, not another surprise. Mount Carmel, been one of the most dominant teams in Illinois over the course of the last 5 years, won the 7A state title pretty decisively, 55-34 last year. They're coached by a Heisman nominee and NIU alum in Jordan Lynch, who's 64-6 and 3 state titles with the program. So I think no surprise there. Braden Jones, 4-star DL, going to be their main man this year. Number 3 we look at is Lincoln Way East.
Another, I feel like these are the top 3 teams, no doubt.
Very
Everyone
much
has them
so,
in
yes.
their top 3 teams. Led by 4-star quarterback Jonas Williams, who's committed to USC. He's a dual threat quarterback, and this team, honestly, out of all the teams in IHSA, I think has the most potential because they have so many weapons around them, including Jonas Williams, who's a 4-star commit that's going to play a high level of collegiate football.
No, most definitely one of the best teams in Illinois.
And at the 4 spot, we have Loyola Academy, another powerhouse in Illinois.
Most definitely, Loyola Academy did win the 8A state title, 35-14 last year. 8A, probably, there's an argument with 6A, but probably the most competitive division of IHSA football. So, they're definitely one of the best teams in the state. They're coached by Bo Drishow. He has 2 state titles in his 2 years at Loyola, 26-2. The resume speaks for itself. Dominic Maloney at quarterback should be someone who should take a step forward, as he did play well last year, and lead, I personally think, Loyola to back-to-back state titles. Moving on to our 5th spot in the state of Illinois, we have Nazareth Academy.
Naz, another powerhouse in Illinois. They won the 5A state championship 3 years in a row. They're looking to make it a 4th. Coached by Tim Rackey, who has 173-55 record at Nazareth since 2006. They had some key players graduating last year, but they'll look to continue their success as they do have Chris Caskey, a guy who holds 10 D1 offers. And at the 6th spot, we have Brother Rice, another good team in this Illinois.
Brother Rice I think is a very interesting one. Last year they did go 6-4, lost in the first round of the state playoffs, but they are in a very tough conference. They do have to play Mount Carmel, they do have to play Loyola. They got a lot of tough schemes on their schedule, and they have played well against them this year. They beat Marist. They last week did beat St. Rita. We'll get into that matchup a little bit later. Brain Bladdock with the team, he's only played 1 season. They weren't great last year, but they're looking pretty good this year. So I think definitely could be a dark horse team, possibly make a push for that 7A state title, and definitely has a lot of potential here in the IHSA. Moving on to number 7, we have St. Rita.
Honestly, in my rankings, I have St. Rita at number 6 as they're 231 in the nation, and Brother Rice is 446 in the nation, but obviously Illinois rankings are different. The St. Rita team was a strong one last year. They lost in the Class 7A state semifinals to Mount Carmel, which is a really tough team, as we established before. But they did have a 10-3 record, and they have a coach who is consistent with winning, Todd Kuska, who has a 215-93 career record at St. Rita, and won the Class of 7A state title in 2006. They're led by offensive junior wide receiver Donovan Evans, who had 35 receptions for 390 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2024. He's looking to make a big jump this year. And at number 8, we'll go to Maine South.
Yeah, Maine South, historically one of the best teams in Illinois. Last year went 8-4. They won the Central Suburban South League. They went 5-0 in that league, and they did make it to the 8A state quarterfinals. Like we said, 8A, probably the hardest division of Illinois football. But returning this year, they do have junior quarterback Jamison Proussel. He did throw for 2,500 yards last year in 2024. They got a lot of other good defensive and offensive players returning. They've looked good so far at the start of the season, and like I said, like Brother Rice, could definitely be kind of not necessarily a Cinderella team, but a team that can kind of maybe upset like a Mount Carmel or a Nazareth or a Loyola Academy. Moving on to the 9th spot in Illinois, we find Batavia.
Batavia, they finished with a 12-2 record, losing in the 7A state championship game last year, coached by Dennis Pryon, who is also another very well-established coach in Illinois high school football, as he has a 135-24 career record. The team is led offensively by junior quarterback Michael Lutengaren and junior wide receiver Brennan Zhang. Key players from the 2026 class also include Preston Grumlin, who had 92 rushing yards per game, and wide receiver Brent Brigham, who had 126 receiving yards per game. Moving on to the 10th spot, finishing out our top 10, is LT Lyons Township.
Lyons Township, they've been one of the best teams in Illinois pretty consistently. They have a lot of good, historic players. But last season, having their most wins in a single year since 1917, going 11-1, and losing in, again, a very tough 8A quarterfinals. They're coached by John Puccieri. He's been the coach since 2020. He's done a lot with this program. I think they could take the next step to make the state title. They got Joliet Catholic this week. That will be a very interesting matchup. Junior quarterback Brock Curtin could be a good player for them, especially if he can perform in those big games on a very challenging schedule that they have.
All right, let's take a look at some key players for this Illinois class for 2026. Starting it off, we'll go with Jonas Williams. Led Lincoln Way East to a 12-1 record and the semifinals of the 8A playoffs. He almost passed for 68% of his passes, which is unbelievable for a high school quarterback. Had 2,926 yards and 42 touchdowns with only 6 interceptions and 395 yards running. And also add some 7 touchdowns onto that. He's a 4-star quarterback and committed to USC, so we're gonna need to see some stats like that if you're committed to USC.
Most definitely. He clearly is the best quarterback in the state of Illinois. Moving on to another star to look out for this season, I got Raheem Floyd. Raheem Floyd, another man in the line of East St. Louis's just great defensive backs. He's a 4-star and he's going into his junior season. He looked great last year, 76 tackles, 48 of them solo. That's 6.3 tackles a game with 5 interceptions and a pick 6. He was great in the state championship game against Geneva, and he does have 12 Power 4 offers.
And to top it off, Nazar Rankin from Morgan Park, class of 2026. He is committed to Illinois for football, but I'm pretty sure he's also committed there for basketball.
He is.
As he averages 23.2 points on the basketball court. So I honestly think he is probably the best athlete in Illinois for sports
I definitely agree with you there.
Okay, now let's look into some RB football, right? We're talking about
this is what everyone's here for.
Yeah, let's get into the good stuff. So the schedule run through for RB as week 1. They played Niles West at Niles West, and honestly, I thought that was like going to establish their season, and honestly, it could make or break a season for the Bulldogs as they got a much-needed W, and that got momentum going into week 2 as they beat Hinsdale South. And then in week 3, they played Ridgewood, and we lost to Ridgewood last year, right?
Right, that was a bad game. That was homecoming like this week. Got a very dominant win. I think that's just going to continue to move our morale because the Bulldogs have looked very dominant against not the greatest of opponents to start this year, but definitely teams that maybe we weren't like blowing out last year and were decisively beating, which I think is a good thing to look at.
Week 4, we're here. Elgin, we beat Elgin last year. We're looking to maintain the title of and then week 5, we lost to Fenton last year, but we're looking to get back on that. We play Glenbard South, which will be one of the toughest games, if not the toughest, of our season. Then we have week 7 at versus Elmwood Park. Sorry. The Bulldogs had a very decisive win last year, and they're looking to keep that going. Week 8 at versus West Chicago. That'll be a great game, I think. West Chicago has a great running back, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then week 9 at Glenbard East. That right there is the toughest game of our season.
Yeah, I think that game will be for the Upstate 8 conference title. I think Glenbard East, the defending champions. I think they're probably the most talented team in the Upstate 8, but RB has looked like the most dominant so far, so I think it'll be very interesting to look at. Moving on into our Upstate 8 conference breakdown, I've put the 7 teams in the Upstate 8 into 2 categories. Teams I think can contend for an Upstate 8 title, and teams that I think just don't really have a chance for it. Starting off with Glenbard East, I think they have the best chance to win the Upstate 8 title. You know, they won it last year. They got Kendrick Dennis coming back. He had 405 yards and 8 touchdowns and only 38 carries last year. He was having 10 yards a carry as a junior, which is really impressive. And he gets that starting role at running back. I think he can be a dominant force for Glenbard East.
The only thing about Glenbard East is they did lose star wide receiver and DB Amante Cook, who plays for GVSU currently. He honestly tortured the Bulldogs last year.
Yes, he did.
As I watched that game, I was actually in the booth, and that was probably the most dominant high school performance I've seen live. That was insane to watch. But they do have Mike Nee, a returning starting quarterback, and that's always important in high school sports.
No, most definitely.
Glenbard South is definitely another contender for this conference. The Bulldogs did beat them last year, but they bring back junior quarterback Tommy Bauman. But they did take a tough loss last week, as that'll definitely hurt morale, as they did lose 57-0 versus Wheaton Warrenville, a very tough team in IHSA.
Yeah, I think that was kind of interesting for Glenbard South because, you know, obviously they haven't beat Wheaton Warrenville in a while. They like playing them week 1. You know, one of their more tough matchups, but to lose that decisively in the first week of your season is just not something you want to see happen. So it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back. Moving on to another team that we have, the last team in our contenders category, we got RB. Obviously, we like RB. This is RBTV, but I think the Bulldogs, especially with how they played at the start of the season, with a lot of returning, you know, a junior quarterback, Bubba Novak, and junior quarterback Giancarlo Garcia, definitely going to be the leaders on this football team. Great receiving core, right? This is the year for RB to make a push for that Upstate 8 title.
The versatility at the quarterback position is so key to this Bulldogs team. As you have Bubba Novak, you can probably air the ball out 50 yards, and you see that from Giancarlo Garcia as well, a little more inconsistently, but the versatility just helps the Bulldogs manage that game, and I feel like, honestly, that has led to the early season success for the Bulldogs.
No, I definitely agree with you there.
Now let's go into some pretenders of the Upstate 8. First, this isn't really like a pretender. I just don't think they've never really competed for this conference, as they went 0-9 last year and 0-6 in the Upstate 8. They lost every single conference and non-conference matchup game, and hasn't really made any major improvements. So
no,
I'm gonna definitely put them at pretender. But another team is West Chicago, right? They lost their starting running back, Robert Lee, who had 1,500 yards and 18 TDs last season.
Monster.
Also, it brings back their starting quarterback, Carter Narajo, who had 21 fumbles last season.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, no, I don't mean to cut you off there. You keep going.
You're all good.
No, Carter he has a very confusing last name, Naranjo. The 21 fumbles were just really costly for West Chicago last year. I mean, obviously, as well as Robert Lee played, they did go 6-4. They had a lot of kind of close games on paper against some of the top teams, like the 2 teams from Glenbard in our conference, but just weren't able to, you know, kind of, I guess, pull away in those games or, you know, take the lead in those games because of how many times they did turn the ball over. So he has to dial that back this year if they want any chance of making a push for a conference title, and I just don't think he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, another team that I see as a pretender is Ridgewood. They honestly were disappointing in conference last year, only going 2-4 in the Upstate 8, obviously one of those wins being the Bulldogs in a tough homecoming game. But they do bring back Angelo Vitale, who was a solid quarterback in the Upstate 8 last year, but they did also lose to the Bulldogs. I believe it was 51-12 last week.
That was not pretty for Ridgewood.
They also lost their best wide receiver and cornerback, Luke Melendez, so I just don't see them doing much in the Upstate 8. And to top off our last pretender, I have Fenton, as they were 6-4 last year, 3-3 in the Upstate 8, mid-season for them. Has lost a lot, has lots of returning players. Program is trending up, but the defense is suspect. They're just not very good. And they didn't really play well against top teams.
No, I'm going to agree with you there. I mean, Fenton, like, they do have a lot of good offensive players coming back, and their coach looks like he can bring their program, because Fenton has historically not been, a great program, especially in the Upstate 8. But they lost a lot of their defensive players. The defense wasn't great last year, and I think when they play RB next week and when they play some of the top teams, I believe they lost pretty badly to Glenbard South last week, and then they'll play Glenbard East later on this season. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete with them.
Hello and welcome back. We're going to go into the Riverside versus Ridgewood, that kind of takeaway from that game. As Braden Novak, he had a great game last week, 131 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Very good performance from him, but I'd like to highlight Giancarlo Garcia, who had a bounce-back week. He hasn't been great this season, but he had 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, and 54 rushing yards, and he gets it done at the cornerback position.
Our 3 players of the game for this matchup, we apologize, the marching band is right next to us. Our 3 players for this game got to be Bubba Novak, Jaden Karras, and on the defense, Ben Bisculiusik. Bubba Novak, like he said, really able to throw the ball out. Giancarlo Garcia did have, a big of a bounce-back game. He's able to throw the ball down the field, which he hasn't done so far this year. But Bubba Novak, has played up to what he's played through the first 2 games of the season. I mean, he's looked very good. Very elite passing attack, and then Jaden Karras is just faster than the Ridgewood defenders. If you watch the film on this game, he just gets behind the defense so effortlessly. He had 2 very long touchdowns, looked like Randy Moss out there. And then Ben Bisculiusik on the defense, had the scoop and soar, looked very good defensively, as the Bulldogs did look very good defensively, only limiting Ridgewood to 12 points.
And the 3 players of the game, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Let's go into Riverside Brookfield versus Elgin scouting report. Riverside Brookfield enters this game with a balanced attack led by experienced juniors and seniors returning from last season. The Bulldogs have a strong offense and aggressive defense, aiming to keep opponents under pressure. You go.
On the counter of that, Elgin has a very athletic team. They don't have necessarily the most experienced or the most overall talented players, but they do have a very athletic team. They're capable of explosive plays, and their defense can get really resilient in games. So if they want to keep it close to RB, they got to be physical, and they got to get some of those running backs getting to explosive spaces.
Okay, let's go into some key players to watch for this RB versus Elgin game. At the first player for RB, Braden Novak, passing yards, he has 400 plus on the season, or 450 plus, sorry. He has 9 passing touchdowns, and honestly, he's a sneaky dual threat quarterback, as he's kind of he can run when he needs to. He's also just a very good leader on offense.
Our second player to look out on the RB side is our other quarterback, Giancarlo Garcia. He can play a running back. He looks very good at quarterback. He's a big dual threat quarterback. He only has 150 plus. He has 150 plus rushing yards in the season. He has looked very good from a dual threat perspective, and has 3 touchdowns on the year on the ground. So, if we can kind of balance out the kind of 2-head monster at quarterback, it is a very challenging thing for a lot of teams to spot, including Elgin.
Our third player for RB is Jaden Karras. He's just a big play, deep threat kind of guy. Multiple TD receptions, including 2 long catches for 50 plus yards. That is our third guy, and I think he's going to be a key to the Bulldogs' success today.
Most definitely. We saw it against Ridgewood. Moving on to Elgin, we got Lamarian Powell, one of Elgin's 2 very good running backs. He has over 300 yards on the season. He's a very dynamic runner and can be a key defensive contributor too on the other side of the ball. He's got a dual threat aspect to him, and they need him to do well if they want to have a chance against this RB team.
Let's just go to the score predictions now.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to move in.
You go first with yours.
All right, so we're going to move on to our score predictions. Like Henry just mentioned, I got RB taking this one, I think, pretty decisively. Bulldogs 45, or Elgin 14. RB, their offense is just, too explosive. Jaden Karras, very fast. Bubba can really throw that ball down the field. Our defense can get really physical. We've seen it against teams like Hinsdale South, like Ridgewood. I don't think it's going to be much of a difference, and it's the homecoming game for us. So, if Elgin wants to keep it close, their defense has to play well. They've let up over 25 points in every game they've played this year, and I just don't think they're going to have a chance against RB.
I'm going to go 48-20 RB. I think the dynamic QB duo will be too much, but a thing to look out for is Andrew Oliveras is out on the defensive line, and this Elgin team, if they're good at anything, it's definitely running, right? And so with Andrew Oliveras out, it'll be interesting to see how the Bulldogs hold up on that defensive line, and if they get maybe some safeties in the box to help out, like Oscar Wire or Warren Mason.
All right, well, thank you for tuning in to RBTV Pregame. We're going to try to do this for all the games that we broadcast on RBTV. I've been Dakota McGoniagle.
And I'm Henry Jurgens.
Thank you for watching.